What's up? Welcome to the episode. I'm excited about this one because I love the topic of personal growth just because I've personally benefited from it so much, and so have a ton of my clients as well as other folks that I love. But I am not as crazy about how much ambiguity and, for lack of a better word, bullshit that there is floating around about personal growth, what it is, how it looks, etc. And so in this episode, I'm going to lay out a clear and entirely doable action plan to grow. And the coolest thing about this process is that you can apply it to absolutely anything, whether it be fat loss, relationships, a career change, learning a language. It does not matter. This step-by-step process will work. What this episode is not going to be is that airy-fairy, just love and accept yourself right now in this moment because you're perfect just the way you are. Now, that's true in the sense that we're all perfectly deserving and worthy of a great life just the way that we are. But when you read or hear someone say something like that, it's not all that helpful, is it? Because you're like, okay, well, that sounds great and all, but how? It reminds me of when politicians are like, free education and free healthcare for all. And you're kind of like, that sounds awesome. I mean, I'm all for it, but who's footing the bill? Like practically, how is that going to work? Great idea, but how? Because you're sort of left just thinking, okay, so how do I love and accept myself? Because I'm not feeling it right now. And so what we're going to cover here is making personal growth clear and actionable. You are going to know exactly what to do at the end of this chat. I'm going to start with a personal example. When I was 22, I went backpacking in Europe with a buddy of mine, and we booked round-trip tickets that gave us 5 months to bounce around, and we didn't have anything planned in the middle. And so our plan was to fly into Amsterdam and out of Frankfurt, Germany. That's all that we knew. And so we were going to fill in the gaps in between and go with the flow. We had a blast the first few months, and then we ended up going to Scotland for Christmas and staying at my buddy's aunt's place. And she was actually out of town during that time, and so we had our flat to ourselves. And we stayed there for a while, and then I started to get kind of stir crazy because this town was tiny. I'm talking under 5,000 people. It was beautiful. But after a couple of weeks and a little break from staying in hostels, I was ready to go somewhere else. The thing was that my bud was starting to get a little bit homesick as I was itching to explore more. So he was feeling more inclined to cut the trip short and head home, and eventually it got to a point where I had a decision to make because I could feel that he was going home. He hadn't said it yet, but I felt it, and man, that was tough. Because I really wanted to explore, but I didn't want to do it by myself. I was scared shitless, hence the decision. Cut the trip short and head home early with my bud, or go traveling in Europe solo, scared out of my tree. This choice is where the opportunity for growth is. It's the fork in the road. I can say yes to stretching myself, feeling wildly uncomfortable and certainly growing as a result, or I can fly back home and say no to all of that fear, discomfort, insecurity, etc. However, then I obviously don't get the personal growth benefits. Fortunately, I chose to book a one-way flight to Krakow, Poland, and oh my God, was I ever terrified. Booking that flight was one of the hardest things that I had ever done up until that point, because as soon as I hit purchase on that ticket, it was real. I felt all of the emotions, intense fear, tons of worry, angst. It was so tough, and I hadn't even gotten on the plane yet. Now, I could have rationalized, justified, and come up with all sorts of reasons why I didn't need to get that uncomfortable and push myself. 2 months out of 5 isn't bad. Your friend is going home. It's unsafe out there. What if something bad happens? You don't speak the language, and the list goes on. When I arrived in Krakow, there was snow on the ground. It was January, it was freezing cold. And I remember getting to my hostel and up to my room where I was the only one in it. And there were like 15 plus beds. And I was thinking, oh God, I feel so lonely already. And then these three dudes from the UK checked in, and they were really nice guys. They were crushing beers and getting ready to go out for the night, and they invited me. Like, life gave me exactly what I said that I wanted in that moment. But I was still so shell-shocked that I was like, no thanks, guys. I'm just going to stay in. And I remember emailing my mom being like, I think I made a mistake. I might come home. I am so scared. And fortunately, I did end up getting some sleep that night, which sort of reset me a little bit. I woke up the next day, went down into the kitchen in the hostel and met these three Australian dudes, and I just instantly liked them. I was like, man, I would love to hang out with these guys. But I was really scared to ask them if I could essentially tag along with whatever they were up to that day, because I didn't want to get rejected. Who likes rejection, right? So here we are at another opportunity for growth and a decision. Ask to hang out and risk rejection and all of the not so awesome feelings that come along with that, or avoid potential rejection and go about my day solo feeling all gloomy and lonely. So as I'm thinking about asking these guys to hang, I'm like, so what are you guys doing today? And they were like, oh, we're doing X, Y, and Z. And so this is the moment, right? My heart is beating out of my chest. I feel so awkward and uncomfortable, but I did it. I said, oh, well, do you guys mind if I join you? And instantly they're like, 100%, dude, you're welcome to come. And honestly, that single moment, that willingness to put myself out there socially and feel so fucking awkward, scared, and uncomfortable, quite literally changed the trajectory of my life, which sounds super dramatic, but it's actually true. Up until that solo travel experience, I was very shy, which when I meet people now, they're like, you were shy? You sure talk a lot for a shy guy. Yes, I was super shy. And that shyness felt like a prison because there was a huge part of me that wanted to connect with people and laugh and have fun. But my unwillingness to address my fear of rejection, awkwardness, poor conversation skills, etc., was holding me back from reaping the rewards of said connection and good times. We all have tons of moments like this in our lives where we have a choice to make. Do the uncomfortable thing and grow, or don't and stay the same. If we want growth, we have to be willing to say yes to the uncomfortable thing. Because if we want something that we've never had, we have to be willing to do something that we've never done. So many folks in the personal development space drastically overcomplicate growth. This is it. It is taking action when it's uncomfortable to do so. It's feeling fear and doing it anyway. The key to personal growth is not retreating or avoiding or rationalizing or justifying doing the same thing or inaction. It's action. It's saying no to the easy wrong and saying yes to the hard right. And I don't mean right and wrong in terms of good and bad. I mean right and wrong in terms of what do you really want? Growth or stagnation? Lots of folks say that they want to lose fat all the time. But as soon as they are confronted with any sort of discomfort that may come up when they feel like eating something that goes contrary to their goal, they cave. And I am not saying that it's easy. Fat loss is hard. Life is hard. But it's like, what's the real priority here? Fat loss and growth, or avoiding anything and everything uncomfortable? I did this for years. I'd be like, I want a six-pack. But then every single weekend, I'd be crushing beers and eating peanut M&Ms until I was in a food coma. Because the truth is that I wasn't willing to put in the work. My priority was avoiding any and all uncomfortable feelings that came up when I thought to myself, well, I'd probably need to skip the beer and treats from time to time if I wanted to achieve what I said that I wanted to achieve. The do I go traveling solo in Europe or not is a big decision, right? But we have all of these small little opportunities for growth on a day-to-day basis. They show up in our relationships, at work, via our eating habits, social engagements, working out. There are opportunities for us to grow everywhere. And this reminds me of a quote that I heard yesterday, and it was, "The cave that you fear to enter holds the treasure that you seek." We can sit at home all comfy on our couches and read personal development books and watch TED Talks all day long, but nothing is going to change without action. Take public speaking, for example. What is the best way to become a better public speaker? It's certainly not to read all about it and discover what to say and how to say it. At the end of the day, it is to public speak. Personally, I was super uncomfortable public speaking when I was in college, and so I reluctantly signed up for a public speaking class. And I figured that there would be a fair bit of passive learning and written work, and it turned out that we had to do a speech on a different topic every single class. Every individual enrolled in that class had to get up in front of the room every class. And guess what? Folks became legitimately better public speakers. I know I got far more comfortable. I've still got a ways to go. But we could have diagnosed what constitutes a great speech, how to structure it, where to place emphasis, but where the rubber really meets the road is doing it. The recipe for personal growth is to go into the cave, to be willing to feel temporary discomfort in order to yield long-term gain. And by the way, part of the reason that this is so hard is because we're wired for the exact opposite. We are wired as humans to seek out as much comfort as possible, to make things as easy as they can be, because why make them harder, right? The kicker is that our environment has changed so much that books like The Comfort Crisis are being written. We have so much comfort that it's actually killing us. For example, our evolutionary wiring to move less and eat more served us perfectly well when food was scarce and we had to expend thousands and thousands of calories in order to feed ourselves on a daily basis. But now we can just order Uber Eats right to the door. In evolutionary terms, we can hit that jackpot button every single day without expending any energy. Now, knowing this, the choice is ours, right? Before, yielding food was really, really hard, and therefore our wiring to move less and eat more served us perfectly well. But now we've got something called an evolutionary mismatch on our hands. Old wiring, new environment, meaning a new and novel problem. Dying from starvation is not an issue, but dying from eating too much absolutely is. So where do we start? What is step number one of the personal growth process? Step number one is to get as healthy as you possibly can for two reasons. The first one is that you're going to find out that you have a lot less quote unquote trauma than you thought that you did, because so many of the issues that we experience and believe to be deep-rooted childhood trauma are actually reflections of ill health via poor diet, movement, and sleep habits. The second reason is because the process itself of getting healthier, i.e. implementing the actions required via better nutrition, movement, and sleep habits, are going to bring up a whole bunch of growth opportunities in and of themselves. For example, when I feel like plopping down on the couch with a bag of Doritos and some ice cream, and I choose not to, I'm also choosing to address whatever potential uncomfortable emotions that may come up that I was aiming to mask or avoid via the chips and treats. Now, I'm aware that not every single time that we have a chip, it's because of some deep-rooted issue, but there are plenty of times that we just eat when we're not even hungry in any way, shape, or form to just fill or suppress something. The internal dialogue could sound something like, but I want the treats, or I'm an adult, I can eat whatever I want, or I had a tough day, I deserve this, or fuck it, you only live once. And the list goes on. I could write a book on all of the justifications and rationalizations that I've murmured to myself. And so when this feeling comes up, i.e., I feel like Doritos and ice cream, here's the opportunity. This is choosing to buy the plane ticket or not. This is choosing to say, do you guys mind if I join you or not? And once the opportunity presents itself, action is the answer if growth is the priority. From a relationship standpoint, maybe you're having a chat with a family member or your partner and something comes up and you think to yourself about what you really want to say, which is the hard right, versus what may de-escalate the issue as fast as possible, which is typically the easy wrong. The kicker with the easy wrong is just that. It kicks the can down the road. The health issues are still there. The relationship issues are still there. The unsaid stuff between you and your boss or coworker is still there. You may not be able to physically see it, but you feel it. And that shit is real. You can't see the wind, but you know it's there when the branches are shaking, right? This stuff ripples into every area of our lives. So after you get super duper healthy, now we are on level ground. This is where the real personal development or growth takes place. And you can think about it like building a house. First, you've got to dig the hole and fill it in, and then you start framing the structure. We are the same. We've got to dig ourselves out of the hole first, and then once we do, we can begin to truly build the life that we want. Now, I don't want to paint the picture of personal growth being nothing but upside, because that is not true. Nothing is. There are serious trade-offs to be made. For example, your life right now, just like mine, is perfectly suited to where we are. Meaning, if you begin to grow via taking action in these uncomfortable moments, you may need to reassess some of your relationships, because we are the average of the 5 people that we spend the most time with. And if you want to grow, unless those 5 folks are growing with you, that's tough to do. Also, you can make new friends, but you can't exactly change your family. And so this can be hard. Your growth may ruffle some feathers, and not because your family members don't want what's best for you in isolation. It's because growing, making changes, and improving your life has the folks around you begin to examine their own lives. And if they don't want to change, your growth is a reflection of their stagnation. And that can be painful for people to acknowledge. And so they may want you to stay the same, not because they don't want you to grow per se, but because their priority is not growing themselves. The personal growth path can be a lonely one, because so few people are really doing it. Folks talk about being interested in growth all the time, but the vast majority are doing just that. They're talking about it. And we know that action is where the real growth takes place. Doing the hard right in the moment instead of resorting to the easy wrong. Actions speak louder than words. Now, to be fair, folks grow at different rates. Some people are growing really quickly and other people are moving at an absolute snail's pace. It really varies between individuals and it's super relative, meaning small changes might be big to some folks and big changes might be small to other folks. Now, as you're addressing these uncomfortable situations, just know that you're going to have a whole bunch of internal dialogue going on. It's almost like you're having a conversation with different aspects of yourself, and this is perfectly normal. These 3 voices are aspects of the ego, and contrary to what some folks might tell you, ego is not the enemy. The 3 aspects to our ego are the child, the parent, and the adult, and we also have constructive and destructive branches to each of these parts. I put a podcast episode together on this topic titled The Ego, how to use it to your advantage. And it's episode number 111. And I think that I'm going to update it because I didn't chat about the constructive and destructive aspects specifically, but I did refer to them. And so in the meantime, I'd highly recommend listening to that episode. Okay, let's put all this together. Step number 1 is to get as healthy as friggin' possible via quality nutrition, movement, and sleep habits, which is going to lay an amazing foundation and set you up to build above ground. Because if you are unhealthy, you're already playing from behind. This growth game is hard, so we want to put ourselves in a position to make it less hard, i.e., look, feel, and perform our best. You're going to experience a whole bunch of growth via step number 1 already, which is awesome. And then once step number 1 is complete and you are maintaining that, this is where the magic happens. This is when we really create a life that we love and reach our true potential. Is it hard and uncomfortable? Fuck yeah. Is it worth it? In my opinion, it is. And action is the key. Continuing to push the envelope and say yes to the hard right and no to the easy wrong. Not every single time. The goal isn't to be uncomfortable 24/7 from the moment you wake up until the second you go to sleep. But we also don't want to be perfectly comfortable from morning to night, right? There is a super satisfying middle ground there. And speaking of satisfaction and knowing whether you're on the right track or not, I like to check in with myself before bed each night. I lay my head on my pillow, and if I think to myself, that was a good day, I feel proud and satisfied about what I did and how I did it. That's what lets me know whether I'm on the right track or not. String a bunch of those days together, and we are talking about some serious growth over the course of time. If you're interested in applying for one-on-one nutritional coaching and or workout design with me, you can click the link in the description below or head on over to n1fitness.com/coaching. On Instagram, I'm at n1fitness. On TikTok, I'm at the n1fitness. And on YouTube, I'm at Marcus Sadu. Feel free to leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform if you'd like to, of course. And be sure to hit that subscribe button. Thanks so much for tuning in. I hope that you found this personal growth episode useful, and I will catch you on the next one. See ya.